assistant Thomas is here with me. So originally it's Max, but you can, if you want, I'm guessing you want to see Max first. Makes sense to see the key stakeholder. So Thomas is helping me out with the administration side and showing paper. He can also. You okay to answer questions based on? Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So we've got Max and Thomas in the initial interview. I'll set the timer. My set alarm for 45 minutes.
Your alarm set for 11:51.
So that's when that goes. We'll have to move on to get you full time. Feel free to record, ask any questions you want. If we get through the interview with Max and Thomas, then you're more than welcome to ask for other clients as well. Any questions before we begin, or? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go into character then. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for coming in today. My name is Max Fotherby, and this is my associate Thomas Black. We are, or certainly I am the managing director of Fotherby's and have been since the start of the business back in 1961. And Thomas is my most trusted admin officer who knows, again, very much about the procedures and how it works. And as you know, we want a new piece of software, and you are here to hopefully get the specifications from us, what we need. So feel free to fire away with any questions you've got.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mark.
Yeah.
Max, it's a pleasure to receiving us and let us the chance to talk to you.
Absolutely,
and,
thank you.
Ask you for the requirements for the system. So basically, I will start with the questions that we are considered about the system.
Yeah.
So first, can you please describe the bidding and selling process?
Certainly. I think it's probably worth if I take you stage by stage, if that's okay, through the process. First of all, if you want to sell with us, you have to contact the office and request for one of our experts to either come to you to evaluate the piece you want to sell, or either arrange for the piece to be brought into the auction house to be inspected. So we always start by checking the piece as the first point in the seller process. The reason why we are so conscientious is that we only deal in high-end value items, so it's not like an eBay setup where you can sell something for 99p. The lowest sort of price we would consider is around £10,000 as the minimum sale price, all the way up to multi-million pound. So we arrange for either you to come in, and we have an appointment book for the appointments to come in to, the word is called appraise the item, that's the technical word for this. Or we send one of our experts out to go to the home of the individual, especially if it's a high-end piece. You know, you've got a painting worth £2 million, you don't want to be carrying it around the street, so we send somebody to visit the piece. Once they're there, we examine the piece and check it's authentic, and assuming we are happy with the piece, we complete a form. Would you like to see the paperwork? Yeah. Okay, so Thomas, could you show the? Yeah, here it is. If you just that's the catalogue.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. It's the one that I've got. I think it's figure 4. Yeah, this is it. And if you zoom out slightly, just so we can see the whole. Yeah, there we go. So it's actually a 4-page document. Actually, 2-page, sorry. And we have the initial name, whether the client has used our services before, yes or no. If they have, we will have an ID number, because every client who's sold through us has an ID number created. Their telephone numbers, their contact address, the category of the piece, which is, so it's one of the 5 categories of items that we sell. Subcategories, so if it was a painting, it might be a landscape or a portrait or something along those lines. The title of the piece, so whatever it's called, the estimated price, and are you familiar with the concept of a reserve? Have you ever heard of that idea before? If a seller says to us, well, the piece is worth £500,000, but the lowest price I would sell it for is 400,000, then that's the reserve. And we say, okay, we'll list the item and try to sell it, but we won't go lower than 400,000.
Is that the starting bid? Or?
No, the starting bid can be very dependent on how busy the auction is to try to get people in. So if the piece was estimated at 500,000, if I was doing the auction, I'd probably start at around 300,000, knowing that I want to get interest in, and once people have bid, then they start to get reeled into the process. If you start very high, they probably won't. So the reserve is the amount that we must achieve in order to sell. That's agreed with the client. The dimensions of the piece, the frame, the artist's name if known. Occasionally there are pieces of artwork that we don't know the artist, but it's rare. The period and date in which the art was created. A period is there because sometimes people won't know the exact date. So it'll just be, the 1800s or 1950s or something like that, as opposed to a specific date. A description of the artwork. Then the provenance details. That's the listed evidence that proves that this piece is real. So if you wanted to sell a high-end work by Monet or Da Vinci or somebody like this, then there is no way we would just say, yeah, take it for granted, yeah, that's legitimate. We want to see evidence of the history of the piece in the family, for example, where they got it from, who had it before, which auction house they bought it for. So we record all the record provenance to prove the piece is legitimate. If we don't feel that it's authentic, then we can say no on there, which means that when we sell the piece, we say we suspect it's by such and such, but it's not been proved. That dramatically reduces the price, but some people will still want to sell. But it's part of the process. Then we've got the customer agreement. As you can see, the rules, including the fact that we take 10% of the final fee, which is our fee for selling the item. That's how we keep the business running. They sign and date, and then our authenticator, the expert who went out to the house or who saw the item in the showroom, completes this. So their name, any notes that they think are important, particularly related to the time they want the item to be sold, and they also take some digital pictures. So at the moment we have digital camera, and they record the file names of the items they've taken, so we know which pictures go with which item, and then finally it's signed and dated by the appraiser who went out to see them. That is the basis for everything we go on to sell. So if we don't have that signed, nothing will happen. It won't go any further. We'll say sorry.
So just to clarify, the first step in the process is when the client is contacting you to book like an appointment.
Absolutely.
So would you like this to be implemented in the system?
It's one of the things that would be nice to definitely to consider. I mean, in terms of the priority, I would say it's more towards the central administration, but booking the appointments electronically would be great in the long run as well. Yeah, definitely another feature. In the original brief that myself and my colleagues put together, we didn't put that down because we could still use the diaries that we've got for, clerically at the moment. But definitely, if you have time, appointments bookings for our experts would be superb. So assume now you're selling your piece, you've agreed a sale price, you've agreed a reserve. The next thing we would do is we would bring this document back and we would place it in what we call a auction date pending file. Because the reason we do that, we don't immediately assign it to an auction date, because we wait for pieces of a similar idea, because if we sell things of a similar period or similar style on the same day, we actually achieve more money, because people will come to the auction to see their particular interest. So for example, we might say we're going to wait until we've got enough portraits and do 18th century portraits and sell on that particular date. So we hold them in a pending, the status of the auction sale is pending until we have enough of that type. Then the auctioneer or an expert goes in, possibly myself, selects the items and then assigns them to an auction date. Once the auction date has been determined, if we send a letter to the client, and this letter goes out, there it is, with the client name, the title of the piece that they're going to be selling them, telling them the location, the office we're going to sell the piece. We have 3 branches globally, London, New York and Paris, telling them the dates. We do auctions on a Wednesday and a Saturday, and then we tell them about the fee if they were to cancel or withdraw the piece from sale after the stated date. So they have a period to withdraw, if you like, prior to the auction, but if they go past the 2 weeks, then we charge them 5% of the estimated value of the piece, because we need to make some money and it costs us money to produce the catalogues and advertise. So, assuming they're happy and they don't get back to us to tell us that they want to cancel or withdraw from the auction, we put the piece in and then we create the catalogues. So we know the auction date, we create a paper-based catalogue at the moment, which has a structure like this. I'll just show you what the catalogue looks like. That's right, if you just zoom out slightly, this is quite a low value piece, but it just shows you the structure. You've got the the auction title, what we're going to put it in, basically the theme we're going to do. This is from the 21st century English paintings from emerging artists. It's called the Blast Collection. It's in our London branch. The date of the auction, it's obviously a Saturday. The reference number we've assigned to this particular art item, which is just incrementally at the moment. You might want to change that, but it's incrementally assigned. The period of the auctions, we do periods at morning, afternoon and evening on each of the days we do auctions. I can go into a bit more detail about that later. The date of the piece, the title of the piece called Emergent Wealth, the price, as you can see this is one of the lowest things we'd sell, between 10,000 and 12,000 British pounds, the dimensions, whether it was framed, the artist, Charles Bellender, I'm sure you've heard of him, and the description of the piece, and then the photo itself. Because this is a, shall we say, a 2D piece, we only have the one piece front on, but if it was a 3D piece, then we'd have shots from different angles as well. So it's important that you know that in cases where it's not just a single static picture, then you've got pictures of the carving or the sculpture from different angles.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, sure.
Would you like to stick to this presentation format?
Presentation format in terms of the content is absolutely essential. But one thing you need to know, the way the catalogue is designed is based on the price of the item, and it's the more expensive the piece, the more publicity and space we give it by adding more details. So the current catalogue structure we have is items between 10,000 and $250,000, we give 1 page in the catalogue. If it's between $250,000 and $500,000, that sort of price range, we give 1.5 pages, and if it's over $500,000, we give 2 pages. So the amount of publicity and advertisement and detail we give depends on how valuable the piece is. So whatever you do in the new electronic catalogue, which hopefully people will be able to go in and look at, we would like to see the same sort of logic carried through, that you give more space and more detail for more expensive pieces and vice versa. So once it's in the catalogue, we wait for the day of the auction. At the moment, the business allows you to bid in 2 ways. You can turn up on the day and you can bid in the auction house as normal auction, or you can do what's called a commission bid. And prior to the date of the auction, or prior to the start of the auction, we compile a sheet which the auctioneer has, and this is what it looks like. It has the lot number on that session. So this isn't the ID number, this is the lot number for that particular session, because we wouldn't ask people to bid on an 8-digit lot number, it's just lot number 1, 2, 3 on the day. We've got the title, The other way to bid is called commission bidding. Has anybody ever heard of that before? What a commission bid is, right? Okay, a commission bid is for somebody who's interested in the item but knows they won't be able to be there in person. So they can ring up in advance and say, right, I'm really interested in such and such a piece on such a day, lot number 2, can you put me down? So they give their client number, how much they are willing to start the bidding at, and the maximum amount of the bidding will go up to. So in this case, client 182 had a higher maximum than anybody else, so the bidding started at when he outbid that one at 6,000 and went up one increment, which was £5,000, and therefore nobody else bid on the auction themselves, so the final sale price was 65,000, and that means that that particular client, 182, got the bid. So we bid on behalf of those that are not there, if you like, and that's called the commission bid. Now that would be really, really nice to automate. In the final version, it might even be an online system that allows people to put the commission bid request in automatically via the website. In the version that you built for me originally, I'd be happy for the administrators to put in the details based on the phone calls. So just go in and create a commission bid for such and such an item. This sheet will still need to be generated, but it will be generated automatically, hopefully, by your system instead of our admin officers. We then record in red what happened, the result, the final price if it's sold, the client who purchased it, and any other details. As you can see, this one didn't sell at the end. RNM stands for reserve not met, and that was the highest amount that was offered, and we record who it came from. The reason why we do that is occasionally the bidders will say, or the seller will say, oh, I really want the money, take the lower amount, and we will sometimes, if it's close, so we might contact the seller and say, look, somebody offered 60,000 for the piece, would you be willing to accept it? And because we record who offered that price, then we could then go back to them and say, with the seller has changed their mind and they will accept the 60,000. Makes sense? Yeah. So that is the sheet we use during the auction itself. And once it's complete, we then send out the request for the money. If you're there in person, we expect that you pay there and then through transfer of funds. People don't carry, 100,000 around with them and things like that. And if you're not there, if you're a commission bidder, we send you currently the notifications via a letter, and we expect all people to pay within 14 days. That's the sort of maximum length. If they're not paid within 7, we send a reminder letter. If they're not paid after the 2 weeks, then we start threatening legal proceedings, because it's very important that we get the funds in. And to be honest, because our clientele are millionaires in most cases, they're people with lots and lots of money who can afford, then we usually don't have any problems. They're credit checked, people who can afford to buy these items, and therefore they do pay straight away, because it would look bad on them in the public eye if they weren't paying their debt. So the business works well. In terms of the dates of the auction, they're always on Wednesdays and Saturdays each week in each location: London, Paris, New York. And we have morning, afternoon and evening sales, and each of those blocks is approximately 3 hours. So 3 hours of selling auction lots, and the basic philosophy we run with is that each item will take approximately 3 minutes to go through the sale process. Some are less, some are more, but that's how we work it out. So on a 180-minute session, you can obviously get 60 items lots in a session. So it's 60 per session for the 3 sessions, 180 items sold in a given day, and we do that twice a week. The reason why we only have sales twice a week as opposed to every day, you think, you want to make the business and want to make money, is that the days Monday to Tuesday are the days where we ask customers to come in and look at the items in person. So we bring them in, we call it the viewing days. And then the days Thursday, Friday are the viewing days for the Saturday auction. So everything is brought into the auction house so you can physically see the items before you make the bids. And having 2 viewing days is very important. So we call it the gallery area, where they can literally walk around and see the items for real. We've obviously got major security. We can't have people coming in and picking up a Ming vase worth £3 million and walking out the door. So there is serious security, but that gives you some idea of the quantity of items that we can sell per week. About 180 a day, twice a week, some idea. 360 approximately items per week. But if they are high-end value, we can actually make reasonable money. The other thing you need to know is our pricing structure, which again it would be nice for you to include in the final system. How do we make the money? Well, obviously we've got lots of overheads. We've got the security, we've got the premises, we've got our employees, we've got the experts who go out, the travel costs, so it is expensive. But basically every item we sell, we take 10% from the seller. So if you sold an item for 100,000, we'd obviously take 10,000, and we also take 10% from the buyer. So the buyer wouldn't just pay the 100,000; they pay 110,000. So we get a 10% slice from either side whenever they buy, and that pays for our fees. Financially, we have been extremely successful in the past, but we've noticed that we've taken a drop in customers recently, and we think it's because we're still using a paper-based catalogue system. Eventually, if it was created so multiple individuals could bid or view items externally, we think that we'd take a bigger share of the market again. That is about as detailed as I can get on the seller process. Is there any questions, or does that seem to make sense?
No, it makes. But when I think about the clients, do they need to register to the system?
Absolutely. This takes me, when you're a seller, when you've contacted to sell an item for the first time and we approve the item for sale, we would register you then. If you are a buyer, this is down the second route, you would need to approach us before, well in advance, because we need to do credit checks and check you an identity, because if you walk in the street, bid on a £2 million item and haven't got 2 pennies to pay for it, then we're going to look terrible. So all of our clients, if you want to bid, you register well before, and we do a financial check on you, we create you an account, and in certain cases we can even put a cap on what we would allow somebody to bid on if we don't think they could go to 10 million. So we might say there is a limit. If Thomas, could you just show the client details? Yeah, so this is the minimum information we take down, and you can see that you could potentially be a buyer, a seller, or have a joint or a dual, which means you can do both. And when you're a buyer, you have to have your status approved, and that's our clerical checks, which are done behind the scenes before you actually get to the point of being able to bid. Another attribute not on there at the moment, which we sometimes add, is the one of saying they're a maximum bid amount at this stage. So we might say you can only bid up to items of £500,000, because that's what we think you can financially pay. And is it worth adding that now, Thomas? Yeah, absolutely.
So these are the minimum data about the client.
Exactly, yeah.
Would you consider advanced?
You might want to think about some additional client notes. What we do on this at the moment is a clerical file, obviously. So one of the things that we do is we have space to add extra notes and little items about the client. So it might be worth having a box again called additional notes, which you could just add based. But the other things we keep in the client records is what they've bought and what they've sold. So that the case paper, that would be the identifying details, but then there'd be all the list of what they've bought and sold over the history of their account with us. So which could be substantial over a long period of time. So that is the sort of buying and selling processes.
And I believe there is some other like structure for the seller, similar to the buyer?
The seller, what in terms of
Registering them to the system.
right, what we do at the moment, no, it's case paper, so everything is clerical. So it's literally we fill in these forms and those are the attributes we keep.
Yeah, but I mean about the seller. You keep register them to the system before you allow them to sell.
Yeah. And if it's their first contact point with us, we do it at the point where we approve the item, because we're only going to register a seller if we know we're going to sell something legitimately from them. If it's an existing seller, when they contact us, if you remember on the form there's a yes or no, we would have already had a case paper for them and then just use their ID.
And like the buyer, you add them the object that they sell.
Exactly, yeah. All their details of what they've sold with us would be recorded. And it's actually very important to keep records of that, and we have since 1961, because it gives the provenance of the item. So if you sold an item with us, then we would keep records of that sale, and then if somebody who bought the item wanted to sell it in the future, it's that chain of evidence to prove that it's really yours and it's a real piece.
We have large filing cabinets just fit.
Definitely keeping a record of who's sold what and who's bought what. And it might be, if you're a joint, it could be what you've sold and what you've bought.
Yeah. And about payment, you said, so can you give us more details? So how the payment?
Yeah, at the moment, the payments, all of our transactions are made by bank transfer. So that's why it's important that we have an account where the funds can be sent to and taken from. Yeah, that's right. So on here we've got the bank details that we do. But those, as I say, we do a really detailed investigation, especially into people who want to be buyers, to make sure that they can financially pay for the items they ask for. Otherwise, we could be in a terrible situation where we are trying to sell, or people have bought items and then we can't get the funds for them. So that's really, really important.
So just bank transaction that you...
That we would need to keep that, yeah. And also, we keep on our spreadsheets records of the financial transactions. So what the 10% was of the fees that came in, the 10% from the seller, the 10% of the buyer, and that's how we work out how much profit we make. And then obviously we pay taxes on our net profit as a company. But the type of things that would be nice would be to create a system where you could go into an ID for a customer, see what type they are, seller, buyer or joint, look at what they've sold, look at what they've bought, and also see how much they've paid us in terms of fees. I mean, that would be really, really nice if you could achieve that.
And about receipt, so you generate a receipt for the buyer and for the seller?
Absolutely. Once the funds come through, at the moment it's a paper-based receipt which we then give to confirm the sale is completed, and we again, a letter is usually part of the receipt thanking them for the funds, and again that could be automated. One of the problems we have at the moment is that we spend an awful lot of money on printing costs for the catalogues and also for the letters that we send to clients on a daily basis. So if you could convert some of these to automated emails, that would be really, really good.
There's a question about the company. Does the company validate authenticity or any cost involved?
Yes, the authenticity process really is key to our business, because if we were found to be selling items that were fake, that's right, or questionable authenticity, then people wouldn't come to our auction house. So one of our biggest expenses, believe it or not, is paying for a lot of money for our high-end experts to go out to the different properties to check the item is real. And the time we've been running the business, I only know of 2 instances where we've sold items and they have in fact been found later on to be fake. And in both cases, immediately we gave a refund. And the reason behind that is we couldn't risk our reputation. So we gave a refund to the buyers, and we chased the sellers for some of the funds back. But you can imagine we don't want to get it wrong. We don't want the bad press. So our experts are really well trained and go out and know what to look for in the different pieces. We have we have a number of experts who are specialists in different fields, you know, so paintings of a particular period or sculptures of a particular period, and we pay them substantial money, good quality wages to do a good job, because we can't risk the reputation of the company.
About the items identifiers, identity, sorry.
Yeah.
Do items have unique identifiers or just a lot number?
Yeah, they have two numbers, believe it or not. They have the ID, which is just a numeric incremented number, which identifies that particular piece on our records permanently. And then they have a lot number, which is the slot on the day. Do you remember you saw the item, which just identifies it for purposes of sale on that day? Because if you imagine if we use the same ID number, you'd go lot number 6543, you know, you'd be there for ages, as opposed to lot number 1, 2, 3, and it only goes up to, typically, as we've already said, 60 in any given session of selling.
Let's say photograph. There's maybe for the same photograph many copies to be sold, right?
True, but for that, from that particular buyer, it would have its own unique number.
So
even if another copy, yeah, absolutely. So let's say we've got a photograph from a famous photographer, and several copies of that were made. Even if another copy came in at a later stage, it would still have its own number, because it's a unique item.
Okay.
Even though there's multiple. Unique in the sense that it's a different buyer.
Yeah.
A different seller.
Different object.
Yes,
either.
exactly, yeah.
So each of our items that we're selling, each have a unique ID, could in fact have two, but it can be classed as two different items because they're being sold at a different time.
So you base as like an object principle. So this object, even they are similar, but they are different. Two kinds. Different
exactly.
things.
It might have exactly the same attributes, but in fact it is in fact unique.
All right. Do you have qualified staff to operate the system?
I'm very confident in the staff we've got at the moment. Both the appraisers and their quality of the work they do to authenticate, and also the administration team. One concern would be potentially that some of our administrators aren't particularly computer literate. So when you develop the software, I mean, Thomas can verify this, it would need to be very user friendly.
A user guide may help, but
Yeah.
the prototype does not.
I would definitely reiterate that, and make sure that potentially that if you put in some data that is incorrect, it tells you what you've done wrong, you know, appropriate error messages, just to make the administration system very usable.
What sort of reports would be useful for you?
Reports for us, biggest one would be the items currently in the pending allocation of lot, and the reason being is at the moment I literally have to go through the filing cabinet to pull out ones and group them together. If you just had something that says what have we got outstanding, gives the list, and then you could go and allocate them to a date or an auction, that would be brilliant. One's for financial transactions outstanding, so where we've got payments due. Remember, the 2 week is the maximum period before we start threatening legal proceedings. So the one that says not paid after a week, and then one that says not paid after 2 weeks. Other reports, profit margins or commissions paid over a certain period. So how much money did we make last month from seller premiums, buyer premiums?
Pending
yeah.
for inspection quickly. So.
Yeah. If we have an appointment system, currently it's diary based when we send people out, or they were asked to come in to show us a piece. But we could, if you made those diaries electronic, one of the things would be to print off your schedule for the day, so the list of which customers you've got to go and see based on your diary. I think all the letters that we currently send to notify that could potentially go down the route of electronic
reports, would you like them to be available to all the members of the staff, or?
No, that's a brilliant question. I think there would need to be two layers at least internally. The top layer, which would allow access to everything and view every type of report, and then there'd be access for the second tier, which would be restricted so that they could view things related to auction items, but they wouldn't be able to see maybe the financial side of things. But they'd still be able to, you know, to add an auction lot and things like that, create an appointment, but they wouldn't be able to see the full list of, you know, how much money the company's making. I would like to keep that restricted.
That could be later.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I would say you are right. We would normally expect them to hand the information to the administrator. So if we did go for a business opportunity where we had the diaries created, the third layer would be required as well. Yeah.
Mr. Rashad now will take.
Yeah, let's just go back a little bit. You said about validating the piece of art.
Yeah.
So, do you need the system to handle the specialist? I mean, the payment and their details?
It would definitely be useful to keep a record of the information we've got. If you go back to that form just for a second, Tom, the original one we create when we approve an item. This information here, once it's approved, would need to be computerised.
Okay.
So in particular, who it was who authorised any special notes, and also the authentication that it's been approved. We would occasionally sell something if it wasn't authenticated, but we'd have to state that.
Yeah, but do you need to know by whom?
Yeah, it would be the expert, and any of the providence details as well would be any previous records.
Yeah.
So that would be, you know, in such and such, it was sold to somebody, and then they've got the evidence, the receipt for the sale from that period of time.
Yeah.
So all this information is all sort of the back record on the authenticity.
Do you have a commission rate based on item type?
No, flat commission. It's the
Okay.
10% on either side, 10% seller, 10% buyer. Even occasionally we've had people come in and say, oh, well, I'm going to sell an item for 10 million and I really want you to reduce the percentage. I still, as the manager, try to stick to the 10% because of the amount of effort and the costs involved. So at this stage, it might be in the settings of the application, but the commission buyer and rates would be entered, and then they would be flat rates which would apply to all transactions. They wouldn't be an adjustable, user defined. We could potentially in future years change them, so it'd be nice to have a setting to what they are set at the moment. But in terms of the future, we're not going to give discretion at this stage to change the rates.
What's the major problems with the current system that we have?
Good question. I mean, hopefully some of them have come across when we've explained things, but the volume of paper we use at the moment, the volume of storage, because we have to keep all the records for providence reasons, and we have that in storage now since 1961, which you can imagine is an awful lot of paperwork. We've also got the client satisfaction. I think next week you'll meet a couple of our clients and talk to them about the processes involved, but they're not happy because we're not reaching the maximum number of people. The catalogues can only be sent to so many people, for example, because we only do a print run of X number, and therefore when it comes to the satisfaction and the number of people we're reaching, we need to improve that. So in the final product, we might have a web front end which allows people to view the auction and what's happening, and maybe even bid online simultaneously, which would mean that we could hit miles more people interested, the higher the prices. So that is probably the biggest limitation that we're aware of at this stage, or that set is the biggest limitation.
For the items, can be there's multiple categories?
There is, yeah. We have, if you go to the list there, additional information, we've we've got another 5. Yeah, basically there's the 5 categories, and then there's the subcategories that are under there of information, which we can provide that for you. So paintings, for example, will have a subcategory of landscape, seascape, portrait, etc., etc. But they're all just different types of the main category.
Improve the search operation
Facilities,
for the users.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
gonna
We'll be able to find that for
okay.
you. Yeah.
Okay. So I think there's just one last question for Mr. Mark Jones as an expert.
Mark from
So the seller,
There's
client.
right. Okay.
Client
In view of the time, how are we doing? I'm tempted to ask you to see next week because we've only got 3 minutes left.
Okay.
So to ask him to come in is probably a bit tricky at this stage.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I would say, it's been really nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Do you think you understand roughly the way the business works then, based on
Yep.
the excellent? If you do think of any other questions for either myself or Thomas, let us know. And next week we will make sure you have time to see the other 2. One of our existing clients will arrange for you to see, and also a potential client, because I think it's really important that you talk to them to understand what they'd like to see in the new products as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great job, guys, and on time. What you've got today is obviously just one side of the story. You know now what the business needs and what the business runs like, but remember that there may be changes needed in the business to meet the client's needs. So that's one of the things to consider for next week. Questions were very good. What I'd like you to do between now and next week is obviously write up the findings for these interviews. You can do that as a team, and then prepare the final questions for the 2 clients for next week.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Well done. Really, really good. Good marks. A group there. You've already got some marks in the bank for your assignment, which is always good. It's only a group until we finish the interviews, and then it's individual, and then you have to do it on your own. But it just would be crazy to try to do the interviews for 30 odd students.